do too much more movie theory crafting, you were talking about Jim Carrey's Robotnik before you were cut off.
Yeah, he did not like what I was saying and cut the power to my house.
Yeah, he did.
He's the cable guy. He's the cable guy.
God,
Talking in the night, stuck in the 90s.
Thank you. It's Terragenesis Operation Landfall. We're calling it just kind of Landfall. And again, mobile, Android, iOS. I would love to hear what players think if they give it a try. I'm on every single social media channel you can think of.
Get it now.
No.
There we go. There's my 90s video game commercial. Get it in your system. Inject it into your veins. Terragenesis. Ah! There we go. Right. Hello everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of the HeyPoorPodcast. I am, of course, your host, Jonathan Trussler, and here with me today is Heather.
Hello.
And beneath me here on your screens is the one and only Benny.
I'm back!
And, you know, with a very, very fancy backdrop here, it is Corey.
Konnichiwa, what's up, friendos?
Yeah, and I didn't mean anything by it when I said that, Benny. We've both got very fancy backdrops.
Yeah, but he has Forza, and I can't compete with that.
Oh, well, fair
There
enough.
you go,
Then.
he gets it.
Fair enough, then, yeah. I mean, like, I've just noticed, Benny, your head is sort of conspicuously low in the frame, as if you really want everyone to see all your cool stuff.
Well, I'll say one of the biggest problems is if I lower this too much, it cuts off Nepgear's head, and then you're just kind of looking at her chest. So.
Oh yeah, jeez.
So that might be a problem.
Which you would never do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just like, yeah,
Look at
let's
the screen and see boobs.
Right. Well, on that note, let's get into the podcast. Okay. Well, not exactly on that note. Let's start off with something a bit cleaner before it starts getting a bit dirtier. Before we start inevitably talking about hentai games. Okay.
Foreshadowing.
Yes.
Yeah, we gotta work up to that. We can't
Let's
just
work
start
our
off
way
the
up
bat.
to it. Work our way up to it. Okay. So first off, Microsoft versus Sony. Brazilian authorities investigating the Call of Duty acquisition. There's a lot of sort of legalese going on here, and Benny, I think you may have some insights.
Well, I haven't had a chance to review the whole story yet, but just kind of from what I've been told, it's an interesting kind of situation. John, can you give me just maybe the readers a quick background, as well as refresh my memory on just a little bit of what that story was about?
Right, well, I'd be very happy to. Just give me one moment.
Just because I know there's two separate things kind of going on at the same time, and I want to make sure we have the right. And maybe we can talk about them both. There's one which is definitely that, but the other is there's also some talk about Sony and Call of Duty and some stuff like that as well.
Yes, so Brazil's regulatory body is currently investigating Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Part of the process entails talking to several massive third-party companies, including Warner Brothers, Amazon, Ubisoft, Bandai Namco, Riot Games, Sony, and many others about the purchase. The initial talks are available online, though you'll need to know Portuguese. Right.
Sadly, that I don't know.
It's worth mentioning that Microsoft doesn't intend to make Call of Duty an Xbox exclusive. Doing so could present antitrust issues. However, Sony is saying Call of Duty is so popular that it influences users' choice of console, and its community of loyal users is entrenched enough. Even if a competitor had the budget to develop a similar product, it would not be able to rival it. So Sony's saying, hey, you know, you're steering pretty close to monopoly here. Watch yourself. And Xbox is like, no, God, I don't know what you're talking about, mate.
I'll say
Xbox has fired back as well. And Xbox says that Sony has allegedly paid studios to avoid Xbox Game Pass. So they are firing shots at each other. So what do you think of that?
I'll say, yeah, okay. So I wanted to make sure I was thinking about the right story there. But on one hand, Mike, I'll say it is a little worrying, and I love my Xbox. It's my main platform, so it does a little concerning when you have one publisher who is kind of just buying up, a bunch of little things. Right now in the anime, circle, we kind of actually are going through this because who is it? Crunchyroll just announced they bought Right Stuff. And it's like, well, there goes another distributor. That's not really all that good because now we've got Sentai, Discotek if you want some kind of more niche stuff, and now you have Crunchyroll, which is the biggest thing in the room. So to bring this back to the Microsoft side, I mean, yeah, but it depends on what they do with it. Microsoft so far hasn't, someone correct me definitely if I'm wrong, hasn't been going, hey, all of this stuff is exclusive to our console. It has been on Game Pass. That means you can play it for free, but that's one of the perks of having a Game Pass subscription, and that's where Microsoft really wants you to go. It's part of their ecosystem, but they're not saying this game won't come to the Switch, this game won't come to Steam, this game won't come to the PlayStation 4 or 5. It's just, hey, it's our ecosystem. These are the tools under our disposal. We're going to utilize them. What I find really kind of funny is if it is true that Sony is paying developers to not jump on Game Pass, that almost, if you think about it in a sort of reverse way, could be almost antitrust in and of itself, because you're basically paying to have a monopoly or to prevent a monopoly in one way. And some would go, well, they're just trying to, prevent this from happening. But again, I kind of just go, if you're literally having to developers to not do a thing like that, either A, your platform may need a little bit of work, but B, the other thing, you just go is, that really should be looked into as well, because you are kind of at that point creating a monopoly of your own by preventing choice. You're preventing competition and choice in that aspect by kind of barring someone from working with someone else. At least how I sort of see it.
I would be inclined to agree. Does seem that Sony are potentially being a little. Well, I can kind of see the other point though, because exclusivity deals are as old as time, aren't they?
Yeah.
And that doesn't that in itself doesn't present antitrust issues. And what is console exclusivity if not saying give this thing to us and not to them? So I mean, you could argue it's just another form of that.
It's a fine line, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, I can kind of see Sony's point about Call of Duty being such a massive world-ending franchise, but as long as they're not making that an exclusive, I don't really kind of see the issue. It's just funny. This doesn't seem like the kind of thing that would have happened sort of 10 or 20 years ago.
No.
It's very strange to me that like IPs are now being treated like monopolies in themselves. It's strange.
The IPs are becoming more important than the consoles in a lot of ways, and before it was the IPs kind of bolstered the console library. At this point, because everything is sort of multi-platform, which is I think a great thing, it's become now how do we keep people locked into our platform, and so that's where the kind of the war, for lack of a better term, is going. That's why things like Game Pass are kind of major seismic shifts, because they give you a reason to stay with a platform. Meanwhile, and I don't want to go too far next, I've ranted about before, but things like Sony's policies about gaming censorship and whatnot, etc., like drove me away from their platform. Yes, I have a PS5. There's a couple of things that I got it for because they're just things on that system, and I want to support those publishers and developers. But I would have gotten a PS5 day one if they hadn't done that. And now going to the Xbox, I may not use most of the stuff on Game Pass because it's not my jam. But there's stuff like Shredder's Revenge, which you bet your butt I downloaded that with some friends and played the hell out of it. So that I think is where we're starting to see this shift, and getting the IPs to use for digital services is where I think we're starting to see a lot of conflict coming to a head. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
Right. Well, I feel like I'm somewhat biased in favor of Sony in a kind of just a But at the end of it, we have to remember they're just both big faceless corporations. They just want to make money. Sad to say, but that's probably the
And
case.
hey, there is no reason, and I'll say this: just there's nothing wrong with taking one side or the other. The cool thing about this podcast and most gamers is we can sit down and have a discussion like this, as opposed to the internet as a whole. To find a bit snarky.
Go to Reddit, you'll see a very different kind of conversation.
I cannot understand people who will, take it very personally that somebody likes a different console than they do. It's I'm quite impressed by people's ability to get angry about things, I suppose.
It's weird because when you got to like the 7th console gen, you saw the console wars kind of start really frequenting itself more, started evolving itself more around that 7th console gen. And there was a good chunk I'd say there's a good 50-50 spread of people that legitimately get angry about which console you chose, or one that's just kind of like playful poking and prodding at each other.
Yeah.
Not malicious, just give each other crap. Which I did that with some of my friends, them crap about their console choice, but ultimately we were both happy with whatever we played. Yeah. Now it seems like you don't find that as often. I would say it's more of a 80-20 split now between people that just get angry about what you chose and people that give each other crap about it or just don't care.
Yeah. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference.
Sometimes over the internet it is. Especially with how many trolls there are.
Absolutely. What's funny to me, though, is how people, will kind of go like, guys, like, we don't need to fight. Like, this isn't what games are about. And I'm thinking like, console wars have been a thing since literally day one. I mean, with Ralph Baer and Nolan Bushnell and, arguing over who's the actual father of video games with Magnavox versus Atari, with, the Genesis does what Nintendo don't. I mean, like their console wars have been a thing. It's part of video game history. It's part of our marketing history. Like, and to me, it's like, it's fun. But you don't have to get so serious.
It's strange, though, because when you look at those commercials in the 90s, it did feel kind of more fun. It did feel a bit more lighthearted, like,
like I said, 32 bits,
how about 64? Whoa! And they'd have all those kind of crazy-ass commercials, like, the Jaguar's going to bite off a piece of you. Yeah, that kind of thing. They're having a laugh with it, really. But now they're getting out the lawyers,
They're getting malicious.
Serious.
It's funny because I have a book, The Ultimate History of Video Games, and the first 2 chapters, it goes from basically Pong. It literally says from Pong to Pokemon and beyond, but it's really Pong to Pokemon. Like, it ended in like 2000, right? So that's when the book was written. So the first 2-3 chapters are about like how video games started. Pinball was kind of a predecessor, and pachinko and all that stuff. And the rest of it is litigation. All of it's litigation. There's so many chapters of just litigation. I mean, the whole King Kong versus Donkey Kong thing, the Ralph Baer and Nolan Bushnell. There's so much litigation in video game history. Like, you would be shocked.
The NES lockout chip.
Yes. And then just like, corporate conspiracy, like not conspiracy, what is it? Espionage with like, Nintendo withdrawing at the last minute for the PlayStation, the Sony CD, and then Sony going, well, fuck this, I'm going to PlayStation then. Like, there's a lot of really fun corporate history within these things that we miss because we are just the consumers. So when people say like, this isn't us, this isn't part of video games, it's like, no, it is, but it's fun, and it doesn't have to be so, you don't have to be so angry. Like, it's just kind of a fun history thing to me.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. It's one of those things. I think especially with now how interconnected we are and how the news just comes out, like this. It's harder when stuff like this happens to kind of keep it in the background. So we tend to focus on it a little bit more. But no, I mean, look, I agree with you. Look, the NEP series the whole premise is console wars. That's what it was originally designed for, and it was made as kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing of the industry and an homage to its history. How it's held up years have gone by is a whole thing up for debate, but the thing is,
the premise is still there. You can have your competition without becoming hateful about it.
Yeah.
But the same thing is, you have to have competition or your industry becomes stagnant and nobody makes progress. Nobody's obliged to care about progress at that
You
point.
say
And in
that.
fact, Neptunia even has a bad ending that is literally that. You kill all the other goddesses, it's like there's no competition now. Everything's just gonna stagnate.
The conquest ending.
I'm not 100% sure about that. Because you see, I just remember again the PS2 era where the PS2 had very little competition. But there were just so many games. It was just so easy to make games for it.
Look at how easy it is to fight a PS2 game versus a GameCube game.
Yeah, that's because PS2 was the competition. Because before Nintendo had the monopoly, right? And that's after killing basically, well, Sega killed itself. But
it was assisted suicide.
But like Nintendo, they were more focused on piracy and making sure that they could protect their games. And so that's why they stayed cartridge based, whereas Sony was like, no, we're going to try discs. And what happened? One of the biggest IPs moved away from Nintendo. We suddenly get Final Fantasy going from Nintendo to Sony because they wanted to make sure they could have better graphic, better music. I mean, they could do so much more with the technology. They lost a killer app because of this. Like they were the competition.
That's kind of my point. So yeah, even though they kind of sort of crushed the competition, I mean, all the innovation was still there because it just made things so easy for the developers. Because what makes games better isn't competition between the console manufacturers. It's competition between the developers to make better games. That's
I could agree with
view.
Because when the NES was coming out, they were fighting against the Atari. I guess the infamy that was around their games because they just put bloatware on the Atari, right? And so Nintendo had to have this uphill battle with American markets where they were like, no one wanted to touch video games. It was considered a fad at that point. And there was like this, the dark ages of video games, basically. And yeah, and the way they did the crowd control or the quality control was that Nintendo seal. And they told developers, they said, you only get 5 titles with us a year. You make those 5 titles count. And that's why within the development stages, they actually did have a lot of, there was some competition within their own companies to make sure they could get the 5 best. But yeah, I think that made healthy quality with Nintendo. And that's why I think some of the IPs that they have to this day, we're really loyal to it because they still are there. But to your end with the PS2, like, there wasn't a lot of competition with that, you say. And I would argue that that's when Nintendo really reshuffled their strategy and went, you know what, we're not going to compete in terms of technology. We're not going to compete. Like, we're going to go back to our roots. We're not just a video game company. We're a toy company. We're a novelty company. Let's make something novel. And they came back with the Wii. And they decided to do a half step in terms of their console releases. They didn't fight with Microsoft and Sony anymore. Now they're doing a half step. The Switch comes out a half step earlier than the other ones. The 3DS and the Wii U comes out a half step earlier. Everything comes out a half step earlier. They have completely changed their strategy in terms of how they sell hardware. I think it's phenomenal what they did, and that was in response to the competition.
Yeah, and even during that time, when you're talking about that transition from GameCube, they had the market with the GBA, but they decided let's get innovative, and that was when the DS came out, and that took off, and it was sort of the beginning of that renaissance where they went innovation. To use that word, is not what they love to use it, but I do agree with it. Is kind of what we just need to go for, and not raw hardware specs. And it's really, for the most part, the Wii U is kind of the weird thing that they may have gotten a little. Part of it's marketing, part of it is just maybe you got a little too ahead of yourselves there. They've been pretty successful with a lot of their stuff.
Now, here's the thing. I think that has changed a lot. Now, back in the 90s, Nintendo and the PlayStation, the N64 and the PlayStation, they filled very different niches. They're fundamentally different consoles using fundamentally different storage media, making fundamentally different games. Now, the current gen, or even the last gen, maybe even the gen before it, Xbox versus PlayStation, they're very similar consoles technically, using the same storage media, competing over basically the same kind of games and the same kind of. I don't feel it drives the same sort of innovation that it used to. Now it just kind of feels like two bloody-minded corporations tearing chunks out of each other. And it's just kind of hearing you talk about the past makes me feel kind of sad about that, I guess.
Well, but this is where you see, I think, the innovation with Game Pass came about. I think this is where they decided, look, I agree with what you're saying, and I think they saw that too. Like, we literally have the same market as these guys. How can we be different? And Games Pass, like I've only had the first original Xbox. I haven't had an Xbox since, but that would have made me buy one. Is hearing like, oh my God, like I get all these games for how much a month? That's it. Like I prefer it, but damn, that's a good deal.
I can try stuff out, and if I want it, I can go buy it then.
Right.
And plus, sometimes they add things immediately. So, like for example, when Halo Infinite dropped, it was right there on Game Pass the moment it dropped.
That's how you corner a market where you're basically being like you're the same. And I think that's innovation in a model, which is not innovation we normally see. Nintendo changed their model. We are seeing now Xbox change their model. PlayStation, have they changed the model? I would argue that it's kind of been the same model since the PS1 and PS2 days.
They were trying to play catch up. And it's like, if you go back, I do want to go back, because when you go to the PlayStation 2, the Xbox, and the GameCube, that was where you really started to see a lot more multi-platform games come about, but the innovation was still there in different ways. The GameCube really was more of its IPs. The PlayStation 2 was the DVD player in the hardware space, but then they did try to do some online stuff, including like hard drive, you could install that. But the Xbox, that's where you had the start of Xbox Live. And then you sort of went to, at that point, the next generation, and Xbox Live really became a thing. And at that point, that's sort of where we started to have this more technological service, but games became more of a service starting at that point. And in that aspect, Sony has been trying to play catch up for years. And Nintendo, it's not their game. And look, it's one of those things that I get really frustrated with, like the Nintendo Online service, just because it doesn't seem to work half the time. Heck, last week we were trying to all play the new Mario Kart courses. We're in my living room, all have our own systems, and we can't do local play because for some reason it keeps disconnecting. And we try and go online, and it disconnects us all. And I work in IT, so it's not a thing of I don't know how to computer. It's like, look, there's something going on with this service, and it seems to be one of those something that happens just all the time when we try and play stuff online. When we were playing Shredder's Revenge, we had some minor issues when we were trying to play again, we had like 4 or 5 Xboxes here in my living room. There was one that was way off in the corner that was a little bit further from the Wi-Fi, and it could have been a patching problem with the game because we were playing it on release night. But you know what? That worked a hell of a lot more smoothly, and it's one of those things that why I don't do the multiplayer stuff on Xbox all that often. You know what? When I'm getting value out of that stuff. Those game, like I said, gaming as a service, just like software as a service, is becoming more and more of a thing. And I think we're seeing a lot of revolution and innovation in that side of it. And that's where these platforms are going to differentiate themselves. Because if you look at the hardware, they're all kind of x86, x64 now based, because they want to make it easier for developers to pick either platform or the PC to develop for. That was the entire thing, because if you go back again, the PS3, that was the cell broadband processor. That thing was a nightmare for any developer you've ever talked to. This, like, you either knew how to work it or you didn't. That's why they kind of ditched that idea with the PS4, and with the PS5, it's still that same x86, x64 architecture, where it's like, hey, everything, it just kind of works. You can sort of, yes, the development kits are different, but the core architecture of the hardware, it's a PC. You could develop for a PC. You could make games for our system. Come on over. We'll help you out. And I think in that aspect too, I know we've been going on about this for a little bit, but it's like in that aspect, Microsoft has done a much better job, I think, being an ambassador to developers, because they knew they were coming in, and they need developers and publishers to want to work with them on these services. Japan's been like the one area where they've completely flopped, and they are doing their damnedest now to try and turn some of that around. And I will say that's sort of from my perspective, the last bastion of Sony. When that kind of goes, at that point, playing field is level. I really would be curious to see where things develop then, because really, if you're a PlayStation fan, I honestly feel, and you are solely a PlayStation fan, you're probably there for a lot of the Japanese developed games and the niche games. Versus if you kind of do go play around with an Xbox, you have a reason your bunch of your friends are on there, especially if a bunch of your friends are on there. There's no reason not to honestly like the console. It's same type of games. Honestly, sometimes the games are, especially if you do like some niche games and they get put on there, they go on sale much faster and they're usually a little bit cheaper on there. So even from an economic standpoint, it's like I save money with my Xbox. I'm not gonna lie. Hard to get certain games on there, but when I can, oh, I love it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, let me just say this: console war. What is it good for? Well, apparently some things. So yes, you've changed my mind a little about that. Okay.
Well said.
So to move on to the next topic. So Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is getting a theatrical release date. They've made it to number 3.
Oh.
That's not something you can say for very many video game movie series.
Yep. Remember that the second Mario Brothers movie? Man, that was so great.
Remember the new movie with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? Who remembers that?
I think it's just Resident Evil, right? Or Tomb Raider.
Both.
Tomb Raider?
Both have actually gotten several sequels.
Female protagonist.
Hang on a minute. Didn't Tomb Raider with Angelina Jolie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Did that have a sequel with Angelina Jolie?
I'm fairly certain it did. Let me double check.
I think it
did.
did.
Let's double check.
I could be wrong. I thought it did, but I could be wrong.
They got another film. They made another film in 2018. That was kind of a reboot, Yeah,
do reboots count?
I don't feel. No, I feel like it has to be a kind of a continuous thing. Like
I'm with John.
Djokovic.
Then it might just be Resident Evil.
Yeah, probably.
Silent Hill had movies too, if you guys remember. Silent Hill actually had a movie.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yes, it did.
They did.
It did.
It was actually
and that
pretty
was
well done.
Kind of, yeah. The second one was actually based on Silent Hill 3. Kind of skipped 2 a bit.
Yeah,
which
is fine. I mean, they still at the end of the day, they came out pretty decent for considering the era. We didn't really have a lot of video game movies. They didn't do awful.
I'd say it wasn't the Silent Hill films. They weren't great, but they weren't terrible either. So I'll give them a pass.
So Tomb Raider did get a sequel.
Oh, okay.
Tomb Raider, and then there was The Cradle of Life.
Oh,
which still had Angelina Jolie.
I forgot about that.
Very good. But did it make it to 3?
I guess not.
Oh,
if we're not counting reboots.
See,
if we're not counting reboots, then just 2.
Yeah, reboots don't count. No. So yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog is now joining a very exclusive club.
Wow.
Yes.
Right
up there with Mila Jovovich.
just for Sonic.
The queen sitting on her throne. Mila Djokovic multi-pass. Yes. She has a multi-pass. To our hearts.
Aww.
If I remember right, there's supposed to be a Borderlands movie and a Bioshock movie that was sitting under wraps still. I don't know whatever happened to them, but I remember hearing about them. In fact, I think the Borderlands one was being done by Lionhead Studio, I think.
Oh.
I'm not sure about that. I think that was who took it over, but I'd kind of like to see it.
So, back on topic a little, what did we think of the Sonic the Hedgehog movies?
I haven't seen them yet.
Okay, now Benny, you had an inflammatory opinion.
I'll say I won't go so far as inflammatory, but when these got when the first movie got announced, there's the whole aspect of just like you look at what the original Sonic looked like, and you're just going, what the hell is going on here? The bigger problem there's 2 problems I had with the original trailer. The first, which thankfully kind of got taken out, was when they used Gangster's Paradise in the thing. Not that it's nothing against the song. My thing, I just go, I don't hear that and think Sonic the friggin' Hedgehog. It's
right.
Like, what?
God, no, Gangster's Paradise is like a really amazing commentary just on like that lifestyle and like how horrible it is. You read those lyrics, you look at what his mindset was. It's sad. you're like, oh my God, I feel for these people, and I feel for the people that feel this way, right? And like you're like so sad by it. I am not thinking Sonic.
No, not at all. And it's just like
No.
you're going, what?
Well, maybe
But,
maybe that's just the joke, though. If I can play devil's advocate, Sonic's advocate here,
you're not
The shock
wrong.
value, like the
but-
shock value.
just for a laugh, it's a giggle.
I don't think so. I think it was.
Then.
I've seen too many like, like these welcome mats and like coffee mugs that say like "Gangsta's Paradise" and like cursive font. Like we're so cute, and it's like I believe the children say "chuggy," and that is like I know that millennials, we would say like that's basic. Yes, that's just
right. Okay.
basic.
Now I understand.
Basic. Like, I'm sorry, it's like taking like a struggle, like a real struggle with real people that are stuck in this lifestyle, and you're like, it's so cute, I'm gonna put it in my house. No.
See, there's only one proper parody of that song, and that is Weird Al Yankovic because of Amish Paradise.
And you know what? Coolio was mad about it, and he was mad for the reasons I said, but eventually he was like, okay, I understand now. But like he was upset, and Weird Al was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to offend you." But they put it, they made up.
They talked it out, and it's one of those things that it's in that aspect. Like there are ways. Parody is one of those things that I absolutely love, and there's ways to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But to kind of bring it a little bit back on topic, this was one of those that just felt like it was, for lack of a better term, bad comedy, and I'm just like going, "Oh God, this doesn't bode well." But the second thing was when I saw that Jim Carrey got cast as Dr. Ivo Eggman Robotnik, I went, "No, just," and it's nothing against Jim Carrey. He's a great actor. I like the guy, and even when I basically was listening to some of the lines in the trailer, he is Jim Carrey playing a character, and that's not a bad thing, and it was entertaining. But as someone who's played some of the Sonic games, especially you go like the Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic Adventure 2 era, I can't square those two characters together. And so I was just like, I don't know. This guy does not feel like Dr. Eggman
Are
to me.
you sort of talking about the voice, the physicality, what are you talking about exactly?
The physicality could be one thing, but you could also argue the whole point was this was like how Eggman began, so he's not the rotund guy, which we'll throw that out. That's fine.
Yeah.
But his voice, his mannerisms, his actions, his personality, like Eggman it's hard to kind of describe his character, but yes, he's full of himself, he's intelligent, but he's also at the same time in a lot of his portrayals, for lack of a better term, it doesn't sound like it, but yes, he's a mad scientist, but he kind of has this posh, kind of gentlemanly aspect about him. Like the best way I can kind of put it, if you want to go that far, as much as everyone friggin' hates it, Sonic 06 Eggman, there are some scenes in there where basically like he is just like, I am this mad scientist guy, but at the same time I am a gentleman and trying to basically kind of like when he's kidnapping Elise, like he's still trying to be polite to her in some ways, but a lot of it is because he's a smug prick, and you kind of like that aspect. Jim Carrey does.
Oh
dear.
His opinion was so violent it kicked him.
Yeah, I mean, Sega
Jim
has
Carrey entered the
censored many.
It always does this to him. It picks the best times to do it.
Oh, he said his power went out. Oh, well, okay. In response, just real quick, I would say like I kind of see what he's saying, and I'm curious to hear who he would have cast for Eggman. My choice, now that I'm thinking about it, now that he's saying this, it's a dream choice because he's sadly passed, but the actor who played Robbie Rotten in Lazy Town, Stefan Carl Stephenson. I don't know how to say his name. Right? Like, I think he could have done it. I think he would have done a really good job. Like their characters are almost close enough in that silly, over the top, like kind of evil, but at the same time gentlemanly. Like, I think he could have done it. But obviously, in terms of who he would cast, I'm curious to hear.
What about someone who sort of has more of the physical shape, like John Goodman, or is he
John
slimmed?
Goodman.
Okay, or is he slimmed
I can't
down
see
a
it
bit lately?
Well, not only that, but like a bit older, isn't he? Like I would like to see someone
I guess
a bit
so.
younger.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how old do you think Robotnik is? Like late 30s kind of thing. He's not graying yet, is he?
I'd say like 35 to 40 in that range.
35 to 40, yeah. I know how it feels, Eggman. It's not easy when you get a little older.
Another one is like, God, what a shame. Is John, like, not no. Why am I blanking on his name?
What's he?
The SNL character, the living in a van down by the river.
Chris
Why am I
Farley.
blanking on his
Chris
name?
Farley.
Yes. Holy shit! Wouldn't he have been so good?
Yeah, you know what? Somebody should have made a live-action Sonic the Hedgehog movie kind of in the early 90s. It would have been very timely and had Chris Farley in it.
Right?
If only.
And David Spade could have been the James Marsden character. I mean, this would have worked out so well. Oh. Damn it.
David Spade. Oh, God, yeah.
Although I do like James Marsden. I haven't seen these movies. I do like him as an actor. I think that his best role is still the not Ella Enchanted. What was he in? What was that movie? The one with the redhead Giselle.
And Jaleel White could have been Sonic. It could have come hot off the heels of the cartoons. There we go. Wouldn't that have been brilliant? We've just made the perfect movie now. Dear. So, yeah, I mean, isn't it funny how the same guy who did Urkel also did Sonic? So
yeah.
you've kind of got this nerdy, goofy guy, and then you've got this ultimate anti-establishment, cool, kind of irreverent guy.
Yeah. Oh, funny.
He's a very talented actor.
I'm so mad. I'm so mad now. I'm so mad.
Yeah, I'm so mad for this opportunity we have been denied. So, do we have a timeline on Benny getting back on, or does it look like he's
Should we take a commercial
break?
break?
Okay, everyone, we're taking a commercial break. There may not be any commercials. There may just be a cut directly to the next part of the podcast, or we'll see. We'll see. Oh, here we are.
Wow.
Oh, thank goodness.
The shortest commercial break ever.
His own movie. See? Told you. All right, I'm just glad we got the internet back. Give me 1 second. Let me jump back into this.
No worries.
What the problem we have? I don't have a video thing. Let me fix that. The problem we have here is that this house was built in like the 50s, and there's no central. And so instead we have
California.
like these we've got these two little portable ACs. One's in my room, one's in the living room, and I was trying not to run the one in my room because we had the one in the living room on. We found out yesterday that if you run both at random points, it will trip the circuit breaker. And apparently, I turned mine from fan just to like low dry, basically as a dehumidifier, and killed everything. So sorry about that.
Oh dear.
That's why Big the Cat needs his own movie. I hope you all enjoyed that explanation.
Yes!
We should just do a jump cut to that so that Benny looks like he's just rambling like a madman.
That's how we got
it.
Okay, well, you were gone.
The intro.
Well, you were gone. Me and Heather just theory crafted the perfect Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Chris Farley as Robotnik, Jaleel White as Sonic, and who was David Spade playing?
The James Marsden guy. Like the straight man.
Oh yeah, and talking of people who were alive back then, Phil Hartman as Knuckles. Come on.
Yes. Oh my, Phil Hartman. Anything, big fan.
Hi Sonic, I'm Knuckles. You may remember me the last time I kicked your ass. And then bam.
There you go.
We wasted the 90s.
Now, which 90s actor would play Tails? Oh God, no! What's his name? The
Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Yes. Or maybe Macaulay Culkin.
There we
go. Yeah.
This
movie, we've made the best movie ever, and now
all right,
we can't make it because two of them are dead, and one of them is an adult.
Reason to go back and listen to the podcast now.
Yeah,
so
there we go.
So there we are.
So here's what I'm going to do. This is my villain origin story. I'm going to go back in time to the 90s. I'm going to make this happen.
There you go.
And yet you inadvertently start destroying the space time space-time continuum over your obsession to make this really weird movie.
It's worth it though.
Just like each time you
can
go,
see this.
each time you go back, something goes a little bit wrong. Like maybe Chris Farley's got another project in the works, or Jaleel White wants more money. But each time you go back to try and do it differently, it destroys the timeline a bit more. So we don't just have a movie here. We've got another We've got 2 movies in one. Jeez.
Here we go.
We're on a roll here. Okay. Anyway, before we do too much more movie theory crafting, you were talking about Jim Carrey's Robotnik before you were cut off.
Yeah, he did not like what I was saying and cut the power to my house.
Yeah, he did.
He's the cable guy. He's the cable guy.
God.
Talking in the night, stuck in the 90s.
But it's one of those. I'll say when I finally to kind of like get back to a little bit on tracks. I know it's going off a little about the older Robotniks, but when a friend of mine saw the movie, loved it. He bought the DVD and he brought it over one day, and we all had a couple drinks, started watching it. The movie, I've only seen the first one. It's not a bad movie. My biggest thing, and I'll go with, if you were going to do a video game adaptation of and call it Sonic the Hedgehog, it's not bad. Honestly, I'd say give it a shot, because there's a lot of little things here and there that you would think shouldn't work, but they actually sort of do. And while it's definitely got to be, it's not fantasy whimsical, which kind of helps. It's kind of like if you ever, and I love the Super Mario Brothers movie, but if you kind of go and like, well, maybe they really need to kind of go to this other world and do this. What if it was just kind of more in New York, which they kind of try to do, or Brooklyn, but they try and do with, Koopa's World, etc. But the problem is they also tried to add all these fantastical kind of futuristic elements, and one could make an argument that it didn't go far enough. Sonic the Hedgehog kind of just doesn't even bother with that, and it's just like, look, he's on our Earth, in our world, there's a reason, and basically this dude is Eggman's a government scientist dude who has to track him down and find out this thing. Here's the thing. I still do not necessarily, I still can't quite put Jim Carrey in the Robotnik / Eggman role. But here's the thing, it's a different interpretation of the character, and I'm actually fine with that. He has a lot of fun with the role. He brings a lot of energy to it. It's still a great actor, and you can tell it's a great performance. It's just, it's hard for me in my mind with all the Sonic games I've played to go, that is Eggman. I just go, that is an Eggman. But it's like, there are so many versions of the character out there that I just go, all right, yeah, Sad AM Eggman. That guy was scary as could be. You look at basically the early Sonic Adventure Eggmans, and then if you look at the more modern Sonic Eggmans, they're a little bit more comical and buffoonish, but even not to, I don't know, because I'll say, Jim Carrey's Eggman is not a buffoon. It's just one of those things that he's Jim Carrey. I think that's the best way I can put it. It's Jim Carrey, and I can't unsee Jim Carrey and see Eggman, but it's still a good interpretation of the character.
Are you saying that he doesn't sink effortlessly into the... Are you saying he's not a character actor, Benny?
I'm not enough of a movie aficionado, because I don't watch a ton of movies, to be honest, to make that kind of distinction. But there are a lot of actors where I watch a movie where I go, with the few I do, I go, oh, I'm watching this character. Like, there are people who, like, when they watch Indiana Jones or Star Wars, I don't see Harrison Ford. I sort of see Han Solo, and I see Dr. Jones. For example, in the anime space, there are people who...
Do you feel that there are kind of a little bit of similarities between the two, perhaps?
Yes, but this is kind of where I'm going with this. So in the anime space, there's a lot of people who love following voice actors. And they're like, they will buy stuff based on the voice actors. Mm-hmm. I have no offense, this means no offense, but I don't care who you cast in a role. My thing is, can I sit down, enjoy the product, and just kind of get lost in it? And with Star Wars and Indiana Jones, I can sort of get lost in that, because while there's similarities, I'm enjoying the characters, the story, and for most things that I watch, it's like one of those things, like when I watch, a couple times I've watched Nicolas Cage movies. Yes, you sort of watch it for Nicolas Cage, but at the same time, if the movie and the acting is good, you're just having a good time.
Yeah.
I sort of have a good time with Sonic the Hedgehog, but my problem is just, I can't unsee Jim Carrey,
So
and I
it
don't know if that's
wasn't-
me.
It wasn't good enough that you could sort of say this is Robotnik rather than Jim Carrey.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's just it's just he's not the right fit for what I think Eggman should be, which it could be. It might be. It could be just maybe. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of things I kind of swirl through my head when I try to think about this. But for me, it doesn't quite work.
He's
but
not
it's still
kind of the old-fashioned mustache twirler like old school Robotnik. He's more of a kooky guy. Okay.
Mhm.
Um,
But
like,
it's a good movie.
I just had a thought, right? I just want to before it disappears. Now you were talking about the Super Mario Brothers movie where they go into this sort of horrible dystopia. Now that's kind of an isekai, and Sonic is kind of Sonic is kind of a reverse isekai where you put this kind of guy from this sort of crazy fantasy world into our real world. And the reverse isekai these days seems to be more popular than the isekai.
It's
He's beyond something here.
Yeah.
I would say for live action, that's easier to make than it is to have to build a whole bunch of fantasy worlds and sets, even if you're doing it VCG.
Hang on, I'm getting a theme here. I'm thinking like the Page Master, Never Ending Story, Wizard of Oz, isekai, and now it's like say Alvin and the Chipmunks and all that stuff. Reverse isekai. You know. Nowadays it seems we like putting these nowadays it seems like we prefer putting these kind of crazy ass characters in our world rather than one of us going to their world.
Yeah.
I
know.
Go ahead,
I was going to say, I think you're onto something because I think what that the properties that they're doing that with are the older properties, right? So Sonic is from the 90s, Alvin and the Chipmunks was from what, the 60s, 70s?
Like that, yeah.
Like these are older properties, and so it's almost like they're saying, hey, remember these guys? How would they react to today? You know, so I think that's kind of why you're getting this sense of bringing them in, because you're bringing them into the modern era versus us going into like the past.
And Who Framed Roger Rabbit was kind of both, which is interesting. I don't really see very much of that, where it's kind of isekai and reverse isekai.
But that's also, this was before that was like, I mean, the nostalgia train was obviously there, right? But like it wasn't like in full fucking force like it is now, right?
I know. Back then, it was really the first time you see Donald Duck and Daffy Duck playing the piano together. That was just like, just
oh my
mind
God.
blown. Like now, if you saw it, be like, oh, okay, whatever. You know.
Yeah. Ready Player One. Already saw that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, God, I hate fucking Ready Player. I'm sorry. That was for another. You thought it was inflammatory what Benny was saying. Bloody hell! Don't get me started on Ready Player One.
Okay, I had a question real quick with what Benny was saying about Jim Carrey and only able to see Jim Carrey, because I agree. Any movie that Jim Carrey is in, except for The Grinch, I only see Jim Carrey. Just like I only see Adam Sandler.
What about the Truman Show?
You know what? That's true. Because it was a more serious kind of role. But because his are always just insane. Like, but I was gonna say like one that I'd never see that like, oh, that's him, is Gary Oldman. And he has such wildly different roles, right? Like with Batman, with
well, yeah, I mean, there are
Fifth Element.
Gary Oldman, he's a character actor, definitely like Daniel
Day-Lewis.
But
he's a character actor that you don't see Gary Oldman anymore.
Yeah,
Jim Carrey is a character actor, and you still see Jim Carrey. And I think it's because his characters that he plays, he kind of gets typecast.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp almost toes the line, kind of goes into getting typecast, but he still has some very interesting characters. But Jim Carrey is just crazy guy, you know?
Yeah, we need someone to be a bit crazy here. See, well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is kind of turned from movie discussion to just saying Jim Carrey and dog, or at least you're being typecast. There we go. Be nice.
We can't say anymore. He'll cut Benny's power again.
Yeah, he will.
But I'll say, to kind of bring it back around, Sonic 3 gets a theatrical date. That's kind of cool that we're seeing, this is getting a third movie. The second one, from what a lot of people have told me, and my friend who went to the theater to watch it, He's like, it's good, and if by the end of the movie Knuckles is not your favorite character, there's something wrong with you.
Wow.
It's out on DVD, so he's going to buy it. We're going to watch it next week. So if we want to put maybe a reminder for next podcast, we could talk about Sonic 2. So
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah, sure. I'm game for that. Okay, well, apologies to Mr. Jim Carrey. You're a very funny, very talented man.
Still love you. It's just, yeah. But anyway.
Please
he
don't cut
doesn't
my
think you're right for
power.
Robotnik. Oh well, that's okay. That's okay. I personally think he was smoking. Yeah, that's just my opinion. Anyway, right. So, also, the Last of Us series has also announced some casting choices. I'm not sure whether I recognize the people they've cast for these roles.
Kind of weird to not think of it being Elliot Page, you know? Like, it's literally like the face
hang on
of...
a minute, but it's not Elliot Page, is it?
Oh,
She
I'm
just
sorry. I was thinking Beyond
Yeah,
Two
you're
Souls.
thinking Beyond. That was funny because
never
they kind of
mind.
came out the kind of a similar sort of time, and she does look a lot like Elliot Page.
Mhm.
Which is why I can kind of understand. Like, I definitely kind of had a double take there at first.
Yeah, I just looked at it like,
intentional.
I bet. Like,
Mm,
how is it not?
yeah. Okay.
Like, when we do game character designs, like, you know, when you have to create quite a few characters,
someone's
kind
gonna
of
kind
go
of
like,
bleed into your mind, aren't they?
yeah, I mean, plenty of people. Like, I'll just say, like, one of the characters that we did for our game, one of the first people we were like immediately in love with in terms of both like her style and her just kind of her overall demeanor was Zendaya. I'm sorry, I've only really read it. Zendaya, and so like one of the characters, we didn't like rip her face, obviously, but we were like, we love her posing, we love kind of the vibe that she's giving off, and obviously, you know, we want her to be like a light-skinned Black female. So that's one of our characters and then I personally loved, like, I was a huge fan of like Grace Jones, right? So I was like, okay, I want someone like this, someone who's like, you know, really kind of like toes the line between feminine and masculinity and just like powerful and
Very
like I'm a boss.
austere as well, isn't she? Great, Grace Jones.
Yeah, oh, I love her. And so like that's another character in the game. So like you find people that you're like, okay, I just fucking love what they're bringing, right? And then like, but you can't make it exactly the same. You just kind of have to give like the energy, right? Like not the face.
Well, keep in mind, inspiration comes from all sorts of places, and while I know people will go, well, that's unoriginal. Here's the thing. Originality, not to say it's overrated, but I think it's misunderstood. Original means basically, yes, you take inspiration from certain things, but you also try to make it your own. And really, it's a fine line to walk between that. But really good, there's no shame in kind of doing stuff like that. I mean, hell, if you look at Symphogear behind me, as I have one of the Friendly Christmas figures behind me, that show takes a ton of inspiration from both Sailor Moon and basically Araki Madoka. And then if you go along with basically kind of just like, because they're powered armor kind of magical girls to a degree, there's a lot of little bits and things you can definitely tell they drew inspiration from, and none of it's bad. It's just that's one of those things that because we relate to that, it makes an impact on us.
Yeah.
That's why we care about it, and it's why we try and pass along those things that are important to us to other people through our own way of telling it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think someone said it's going around in you know, on the internet lately, is that someone pointed out that Dante's Inferno is a self-insert fan fiction of Catholic, right? And it's like he was inspired by what he was reading, which was the Bible. Like, I mean, come on. Like, and this is like literature we study. Like, so I agree. Like, you can take inspiration from anywhere, but yeah, kind of make it your own.
Anyway. Cliches and tropes, when used as tools and not over abused, it's hard to go wrong with them. You can make them work. They're the building blocks of stories. It's just you have to be careful not to abuse or put the wrong trope in the wrong area, which has happened. But don't let it weigh you down, and remind yourself that these have been used for many, many years. They're going to continue to be used for many, many years. If you make something new out of them, great. That's how we grow.
Exactly.
Yes. That's funny. I was just thinking, would it be embarrassing if you were inspired by a character, but on a subconscious level, and you don't realize until the game's out, and like everyone's seen it, that everyone's like, oh, he looks and sounds just like blah. Would that be sort of embarrassing, or would that be kind of just like, oh, okay, fair enough?
I guess it depends on the character, right? Like, is it like there's like a Simpsons episode about this where there's a guy named Homer Simpson, right? And he was like this suave, like,
Debonair,
secret
yes.
agent. Yeah. And then literally the next episode, they change him into a bumbling fool. And Homer's like, no.
Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs.
Yes, exactly.
And I was just thinking of, you talk about Dante's Inferno. There was an episode of Frasier about this, where Frasier and Niles sort of accidentally kind of stumble upon this author's next great book. And they read this author's book, and he finds them reading his book before he takes it to the publishers, and he asks, so what did the two of you think of it? And it's like, oh, we just loved how it was inspired by Dante. And it's like, you're right. I ripped the whole thing off from Dante, and he just throws it in the fire and throws it out the window, kind of thing.
Oh Lord!
And it's like, yeah, there are some people who just hate the idea of kind of being unoriginal that much. They just think, no, I can't do this, that kind of thing. But I guess all of fiction is iteration to some extent, isn't it? You can't be too hard on yourself.
And let's face it, how many people have actually sat and read Dante's Inferno without being like assigned to it in school, like
playing the video game, yeah.
Right. Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Well, anyway, any sort of thoughts on The Last of Us 2 adaptation, or are we ready to move on from that? Going, gone. Okay. Right, so
if John were here, he would have thoughts.
Oh, if only John were here, he'd say, well, John. Actually, I think
ego.
I'd have to say, well, actually, John, I disagree with you there. And then we'd argue. Oh,
and then we're just sitting here with popcorn, just going like, "Yep,
yeah, I know.
We're good."
Yeah,
I know some of these words.
sadly, John has to do things that are more important than arguing with me, like prepare for his wedding.
Saving up. Don't worry, you're going to get it when he gets back.
The anger, the aggression is building up. He's playing all kinds of things that he's going to have a diametrically opposed viewpoint on. So
he's just waiting.
I'll come back with a spreadsheet and a Venn diagram.
Probably yesterday, I watched a movie or played a game that I thought was amazing, and he's probably playing it right now, thinking, "Oh, this is terrible." It's like, yeah, just John. He's just the Shadow John. He's like, that episode of Star Trek where there's Spock with the goatee. That's what John is to me. He's John with the goatee. Yeah, he's got the beard. It works on every level. Okay. Now, Heather, taking it to you, I believe you have some joyous news you want to share with us.
Yeah, I actually, my company's game that we've been working on for like 2 years, but it's been in development a bit more. We finally released it, so
Hooray!
It's out. Yay! Thank you. It's called Terragenesis Operation Landfall. It is available for Android and iOS, so it is a mobile game. And it's like an idle city builder survival game. So like, kind of like in the vein of Frostpunk, it was like a society simulator, I think is how or society survival simulator is how they described it. And this was a game that I literally would not shut up about, and was like, for a year, like I was like, you have to play this, to my boss. And he finally just buckled down, I was like, fine, I'll just play it. And he played it and he was like, oh my God, this is a sad game. It's like Schindler's List in game form. And, he's like, it's good, but you don't want to watch it every day type of thing. But it really kind of set the scene for like, we could do like a more realistic space game, like surviving on Mars, surviving on Mercury, surviving on Venus. but in the tone of Frostpunk, because these things should not be easy. These things should be extremely difficult. And so that's the game. That's what it is. You go to Mars and hell ensues.
Yeah. Well, perhaps you should give a copy of this to Elon Musk, who apparently thinks it's easy. It'd be a laugh. Anyone could do it. It's fine. Brilliant.
No problem.
We've tried to get him actually to play our first game, Terragenesis, which is about terraforming Mars. And it's much easier. This Terragenesis is much easier than Landfall, which is funny. But I should say it's more relaxing. But yeah, no, so that is out. And it was, it was a lot of work. There were a lot of nights where I just did not sleep because I was busy like writing, or I had to help out with coding. Definitely had to do a lot of playtesting.
How long was crunch time?
Luckily we had a lot of people working on it. I would say overall, and this is including QA people, I think we had about 20 to 30 people spread across our developer and our publisher side. And this was over 2 years. So crunch, at least for me, was a week. And so it wasn't very long. And my job, luckily, because I got a lot of stuff done in advance, I was able to manage my time a little bit better. I can't say the same for the devs. They probably had a lot more crunch than me. But we delayed our game a little bit for about 2 weeks. We had a 2-week delay. We were originally going to launch in July, and we launched in August instead, and that helped. It's a mobile game. It's a mobile game that, it's not like Genshin or anything. So people weren't like, where is it? It was just kind of like, okay, fine, we'll wait. We got other games to play. Like,
Right.
Yeah. It's not exactly Star Citizen. You don't exactly have people. Where's our 500 million gone?
Right. Well, what's interesting is we had 600,000 pre-registrations, which is a lot and terrifying, quite honestly.
Were these paid registrations?
No. They just pre-register, and then they get a notification when the game's ready to download.
Okay.
So that was terrifying because I'm like, oh my god, 600,000 people are waiting.
It's scary, isn't it?
It's so scary. And I will say this. I think the most interesting part about launch was just kind of how the platforms work and how we made it happen, I guess you could say. So I don't know, for people who are aware of how these things work. Usually developers and publishers will have something what's called an SDK. And I honestly have never even asked what it stands for, but it's basically the way.
Development kit?
There you go. And the way I describe it is it's kind of like a backpack, and it's like all the developers' tools and all the publishers' tools kind of just go in there, and you put it in your game. So for us, we have our customer service program that, it allows players to talk to us. That goes in our SDK. And the publisher has some other things in there too for them. And one of the tools in one of our SDKs was being a little fidgety. It just wasn't working with the version of Unity we had or something. The devs could probably explain it better. But it was a little bit buggy, and it was causing some problems. And literally at the 11th hour, I shit you not, the 11th hour of okay, if we don't get this up by noon, we're not going to get this featured on the Google Play Store. One of the developers fixed it.
Wow.
And he was able to fix it and he uploaded it at 11 I think it was 11:55.
Damn.
Jeez,
Yeah.
cutting it a bit
Yeah.
fine.
Enable butt clenching mode.
Yeah, exactly. And so then, because it had been broken, it had been causing some issues, players were, they were upset. I mean, our crash rate because of this was pretty high. It was about 15%. I mean, that's high. And the developer was able to get it down to, our analytics showed about 1 or 2%. I mean, it was a phenomenal decrease. And so my customer service person and I, we were just answering like crazy to all these reviews, like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry, but we fixed it. Go ahead, re-download it. Let us know what you think. And if it works for you, I hope you review us, more favorably to reflect this correction. And our rating went from a 3.6 to like a 4.2.
Mhm.
And if you don't have it at a 4, Google will not feature you.
Wow.
They don't feature games that are lower than 4 stars because they don't want to feature garbage, right? They don't want to
Right.
feature things that don't work. And we've basically, with those two things, just slid home just barely, like we tripped over the finish line. And I kind of liken the whole thing to, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mount Everest, the first summit with Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay, where they summited Mount Everest and they come down with George Lowe, and the three of them come down to the base camp and they look at their clocks and they go, if we get the news back home in time, we can tell the Queen on her coronation day that we've summited.
Mhm.
And they're like, "Let's go!" And they just race and they get the news out. And that's when the news of the summit of Mount Everest was broken, was during the throngs of the crowds for Queen Elizabeth's coronation. And that's what it felt like. We had summited, we had launched, and we're like, oh, we did it finally. But we come down and we're like, wait, guys, if we do this little bit of extra work, we can get a massive payoff here and we can make it like smooth sailing.
Mhm.
So that was our launch day.
I'll say that is a ton of work, especially to get done in such a short time, because I don't know. I was originally going to go into game dev myself, and then it was like, oh, you have to learn maths up to calculus. And I said, no, I'm done. But in programming especially, a lot of times you will change one small thing, and you might think you fixed something, and you broke 3 other things. And
Mhm.
it is one of those things where it's just like, yeah, when I remember I was taking programming, I think it was like I forget which one of my teachers had basically said, look, you will spend more of your time fixing code than writing new code. Like, you will
Mhm.
write 10 lines of bug-free code a day. The rest of it, you're hunting and trying to fix stuff.
Yep.
So
So make things as user friendly as possible, because they will break it. They
Oh,
will
yeah.
find a way to break it. It's
Oh, yeah.
guaranteed. That is a threat and a promise.
There's a joke in game development where you go, a dev walks into the bar, orders 1 drink. Dev walks into the bar, orders 2 drinks, orders 90 drinks, orders 100 drinks, just like different kinds of drinks. And then, just to make sure you're testing it,
Mhm.
a player walks into the bar, uses the bathroom, game explodes.
it's not
Like,
something you're expecting.
right, because you're like, I'm going to play this game because I am making this game. And the player is like, cool, what does this do? And you're like, I didn't do anything there. What? I should have thought of that.
Yeah, we've got a friend of ours. He's my housemate, but we have a running joke. For example, when we play Mario Kart, he will find a way to fall off the course. It doesn't matter if there's no way to do it. He will find a way. And but that's kind of that whole thing with game testing and development. A good tester worth their salt will do their absolute most to break the game, and you want them to do that during that phase so you can try and fix it. Of course, the problem is that once you fix it, you got to go back and do the testing and hope that it doesn't break something else, and it can get into this vicious cycle.
Oh, yeah.
Like, definitely props to you and your team for getting that fixed, and congratulations on the launch.
Thanks.
It's good. It's got to be good to see the fruition of your work now come out, and I hope you guys get some great favorable feedback from the players and the people out there who are reviewing it.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And, we have some great players. I mean, we have some that have been with us for, years. Like, we know them everyone in the team knows them on like a first name basis. And we have gotten some feedback from them already that's been like, oh, yeah, why didn't we think of that? Like, and I will say with our QA, we had a fantastic QA team. I mean, these guys like work their asses off. But there's a difference between 6 guys and 600,000 guys. They're gonna find a lot of stuff. And they're gonna have different devices, and their devices are gonna have less memory, or they're gonna have less storage space because they have all these photos of their nephews like me. But they're not good. So they're going to run into like completely different issues. And so that's one frustration I have is when people say like, oh, didn't you test your game? It's like, yeah, not on your phone. Like, like,
Some of them who are going to say, does it run at 4K 60 FPS? And you'd be like, it's a mobile game. And it's like, what?
And that's another thing, is when players go like, I'm going to rate this 1 star because it doesn't look like Star Citizen or it doesn't look like this game. And I'm like,
oh, you mean that game has been in development for 10 years?
And I'm like, listen, you know what? That game, that sounds awesome. And I always say like, what you're describing sounds like a really cool game. Or, hey, I love that game too. I've played Planet Base. I love that game. But I really hope that you like our game for what it is, or in the very least, judge our game for what it is. Like go, if you want Planet Base, I encourage you to go play Planet Base. But if you want a new experience, I, judge it for what it is. And that's just one big frustration I have.
Just completing a game at all, honestly, is a massive achievement, because it's just it's like a train with so many different moving parts, except there's like 100 different engineers all pulling in a different direction, and you don't really have a map of what's ahead of you. Just to keep it on the tracks is a pretty amazing achievement.
Oh my god,
really.
yes. That's why, and this is something my boss said to us on Friday, which I understand now, is, when you are giving out awards for movies at an awards ceremony, the best direction goes to the director, but the best film, best picture or whatever, it goes to the producer. And there's a reason for that. Like, the producer keeps everything running. We had a joke where, I would find a bug or someone else would find a balancing issue and we would put it in our work Slack. And the head developer would be like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. And he'd tag our producer and he'd go like, Aziz, light, to say like, Hunter, make a task. Like, it just got to that point where he was just always going, task, like make a task for me, because he's going to forget. And so the producer was busy making sure nothing got dropped.
Yep.
And so the whole Aziz light, like instead of like task. Yeah. So like the producer really, if you don't have one, like I don't think your game's going to.
If you don't have a good one, you're going to end up going over budget or
over time,
promising things you can't deliver. And that's going to make a bad situation worse, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it is just so important.
There's actually a thing I read once, and this is just real quick, that you can be on time, on budget, or on quality. You will get 2 of those 3.
Yep.
Never all 3. And so it's a really hard balancing act of which one are you willing to sacrifice. And honestly, I'd rather always sacrifice on time, but sometimes that's not feasible. And sometimes, especially if, that minimal returns, we can delay the game by 6 months because we can bump the quality up by like another 2%. Probably not worth it. Right. So you know what? You might have wanted to get here, but you're here. Probably good enough. It's one of those. And that's where the producer and that leadership team really comes in because they have to make those hard decisions. And I don't. Even a producer, leadership, ELT, whatever organization, I don't envy those types of jobs because, dear lords, the decisions you have to make and you are responsible for is just mind-boggling to me.
Oh yeah, and I mean, we lucked out. We had an amazing producer. We had just a phenomenal team of people, really. So we really lucked out. When you say choose 2, I think we chose on time because we did delay a little bit, so the quality and the cost was there. But I just want to say, like, just kind of say it into the ether, like, shout out to my team at Edgeworks, which is a development studio, and then shout out to Tilting Point, which is our publisher, because it wouldn't have happened without the whole team, So
there you go.
Well, yes, congratulations,
thank you,
Heather and her team. Wish Terra Genesis the best of luck.
Thank you. It's Terragenesis Operation Landfall. We're calling it just kind of Landfall. And again, mobile, Android, iOS. I would love to hear what players think if they give it a try. I'm on every single social media channel you can think of.
Get it now.
No.
There we go. There's my 90s video game commercial. Get it in your system. Inject it into your veins. Terragenesis. Ah! There we go. Right.
Actually, real quick.
I'm not going to use that.
Actually, just as a real quick question, Heather, does your team Discord or something that if someone is curious, they can maybe look up or join to give you guys feedback?
Yes, absolutely. We have a Terragenesis one for the original terraforming game, and then we have one for Landfall. It's new. I'm obviously mostly hanging around in the Landfall one right now, because the Terragenesis one, it's an older game. Pretty much, I mean, people kind of just know what to expect at this point. It's like a 6-year-old game. Yeah. But Landfall's new. I'm hanging out. I'm trying to find as many bugs as I can and report them back. So I'll be there.
All right. Yeah, so if I did take a look at the website, there's a Discord link down there. So if you just do a search for Terragenesis Landfall, it's like /community, that'll be on there. And while you're looking at Discord stuff, why not go ahead and pop into ours as well? We have
pop into ours. Also, I'll probably leave some sort of links to Terragenesis and whatnot in the description below. So click on that. Go on, please. Anyway, talking of game development, Benny, I believe there was a sort of a little story you wanted to tell us.
Oh boy, okay. So we were talking a little bit about kind of the roles that developers and publishers and that relationship that is really, it's a tight-knit relationship. And it's one that I know a lot of times when we're talking about games, we often talk about the publishers, but the developer is really important in that too. But sometimes when you have something that goes wrong, it's interesting because the fan base will usually go, well, it's the publisher's fault. Well, it's the developer's fault or something like that. But what's interesting is when you look at developers and publishers and they work together, it's very rare you see them actually sort of point the finger at each other or do that. And one of the big reasons why is you have to have a good professional working relationship. And when something happens, kind of one of the things that, talking with, conventions and just kind of you're around this industry enough, you learn a couple of things or hear some stories. But one publisher basically told me, at one point, it's like, hey, it's tough because especially when, we hear fan feedback about things that they aren't really happy about, whatnot. It's one of those where it might be a complicated situation, and a lot of times the finger gets pointed at us, but it may not always be our fault. But as the publisher, we kind of fall on that sword because we are the PR face of this partnership, and we want to, protect our partner and help them through this aspect. And it's one of those relationships I think we sometimes don't give enough thought to. It's kind of even one reason why when I've done reviews, I will try and shout out the developer, and I will also try, and then when there's problems with the development of the game, I will point that out specifically as a development issue versus if there's something that's more in the marketing or in the way something's being presented, I will then kind of point to the publisher and be like, look, this is a thing. Like, for example, if you go to like SRW30, there are some things that are developmental problems in that game. One of the things that bugs me is that they never translate the names of the music tracks in the game. That's probably more of a publisher thing because of the fact that they're the ones who are kind of controlling a bit more of the marketing and also would probably be in charge of the localization of things versus the developer probably themselves, even though technically BB Studio is owned by Bandai Namco, so they're really, really tight-knit. It's not like, for example, if you were like we would see like in the visual novel space, like let's say, I don't know, because I have it on my desk, Princess Evangel. Let's say that, for example, something went horribly wrong when they were bringing over Moonstone. Manga Gamer was bringing over Moonstone's newest game. The game crashes all the time or something or whatnot. You know what? That's one of those where Manga Gamer is going to go to bat and just be like, hey, look, we're sorry about this. We'll try and take care of it as best we can. but they're not going to throw a Moonstone under the bus. It's just not a thing you do.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, that's kind of just a small little story of my own thoughts. Heather, do you have any maybe you can share on that, maybe from working on the other side of the industry?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll just repeat again. I am on the developer side, but we do have a really close relationship with our publisher at this point. We just adore our team. And yeah, sometimes there are issues that arise that are, okay, this was a development issue. Then there are other things where it's like, okay, well, publishing handled that one. But at the end of the day, it's our game, right? And we had meetings about this, or we had, extensive email conversations about this or other chains. Like we all kind of piled in and worked on this. And I can't speak for every studio because every studio is going to be different. Every contract is going to be different. I know that, even for our 2 games, we had completely different contracts in terms of social media handling. It's never the same, but you recognize that it's your game. Like the publisher feels like Landfall is their game just as much as we feel like at the developer side that it's our game too. So regardless of whose fault it was, it doesn't really matter so much. We're gonna fix it. Okay, so our publisher does XYZ. Okay, well, you told me, the developer, and that's fine. I can't do anything about it, but I'll make sure that it gets addressed. And I think that's kind of game development as a whole, where we're just really, I think you have a lot of people that are just solution oriented. Like to us, I don't think the blame matters all that much. Like unless there's like some real problems, like the blame really isn't that important. It's just let's fix it.
Yeah.
And so, I will say, like if there are bugs, like yeah, obviously like the developers got to fix them. But like like you said, localization. Good point. The publisher handled localization for us. They just kind of got it done, is more what it was. So yeah, but at the end of the day, like if you tell me, the developer, like, okay, here's something that is wrong, and it turns out it was the publisher, hypothetical that the publisher did it. Okay, well, we'll fix it. Who cares?
Yeah. That's nice that you guys have that good working relationship. I do agree. It's one thing to point out a problem because sometimes it has to be pointed out. But when you start trying to just affix blame to everything and point fingers, that's where I think things in a business sense that's where things go really bad. Unfortunately, kind of on the consumer side, a lot of times, especially with vocal minorities, it's everything. Everyone has to assign blame to everything. We have to finger point, etc. And it's one of those aspects of just I really detest. It's why even like I said in reviews, I might point things out, but I never will unless something is completely like just manhandled, and I'm just going, no. It's like this like if there was like I think one of the best examples I can sort of give was. When I did a review for Danganronpa V3, I liked the dub, but Suichi's VA, I thought they were trying to do a good job, and most people would blame the VA and say, well, they sound not emotional and whatnot. And I go, no, I don't think that's the VA. I think that's the voice direction. They were told to do this in this way, and it doesn't work because you're trying to emulate a Japanese stereotypical voice and not allow this person to emote. Because when you get to the end of that game and that actor can emote, it's a damn well done couple of line reads. It's just they couldn't do that most of the game, and you go, that's not the actor. That's a voice direction problem for me. But don't blame the actor.
And that's where I think a lot of criticism falls short. For me, and I don't mean constructive criticism. There are people who say, "Hey, listen, I'm having this problem. I don't know what to do. I've already tried, shutting off my phone." And for me, I go like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I'll get right on that." Then there are people who, they might say things like, "Well, I don't like that you did X, Y, Z, and I think it looks bad." And I'm just kind of like, "Okay, that's your opinion. Like, can't win them all. Like, go play a game you like. Like, you can't hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
There was a really funny review who was like, Well, a gaggle of geeks made a game that would have been impressive as a tech demo in the 90s. Like, I played this in 1985, and I just went, this would have been revolutionary in 1985 because we didn't have save states as a home console until 1986. So, like, thanks for playing. Love the gaggle of geeks. Like, because, like, you can't. How does your game look? Like, I want to play your game because you clearly seem to think that you know more. Like, I'll play your game. And if you just, it boggles my mind. There are too many games. There are fucking too many games. Why are you wasting time on a game you don't like? Go play a game you like.
Why are you being a dick for no reason? It's kind of why?
That's the climate these days. It ain't going away anytime soon.
Sadly,
people want to be negative for the sake of being negative more often than being actually constructively criticizing things.
I just don't get it. If I don't like a game, I'm gonna leave.
I have seen reviews. Say a game called let's say it's called Mike Goes to Hell. I've seen reviews that are like, I don't like games where you go to hell. It's in the title. It's in the title. Why are you leaving a review? Why are you playing it? Why are you assessing it?
Yes,
if the thing you don't like is in the title.
Thank you. This is why I don't play first-person shooter games. I don't like them, so I'm not going to review. I'm not going to play. I can't say anything.
You don't have to leave a review on every new first-person shooter game that comes out to say you don't like. It's assumed.
Yeah. Oh no, we see this all the time in basically the niche space when it comes to any sort of ecchi game or anything like that. Oh, well, that's terrible or overly sexualized or something. It's like it shouldn't be. Well,
yes,
that's
why it
genre.
says adults only. Are you safe to continue? Yes. Yeah. No, I'm going.
It's like
I don't like it.
Yeah,
then
it's
don't
like.
Play.
Then why did you click you're okay to view this content then? Jeez,
why
did you navigate to the comments section?
Yeah, it's like, and the problem I just go is like, look, here's the thing. You don't have to like it, but it should be able to be out there. And that's what bothers me most. It's like you are now stifling, you can go in the broad sense of stifling creative freedom. But honestly, I just go, look, there are people out there who like these experiences. You can make a strong argument what that might say about those people and their tastes and whatnot. But the thing is, there is a market for it. Let the market decide what is appropriate and what is not. You are not the target audience for this. Please go away. Thank you. Everyone's got to be negative. I don't know if it's just because that's just how they feel good about themselves these days.
It's like we're not putting up a billboard about this kind of thing inside your living room. This is a thing you've taken the effort to find this, and you're leaving a negative review. And I don't get it because of what it is. I don't get it.
It warms my soul to hear this because there's so many reviews. I don't like space games. Okay, why are you commenting? Or like other people go like, I haven't played this yet.
Okay.
Then why are you reviewing?
Like, oh my god.
That's just kind of confusing. I haven't played this.
And it hurts. Like it's one thing if you've for me, if you've given me a 1-star review on my game and you say, listen, I've played this game, I've been playing it for like a day now and it's full of bugs, or I think it's too hard, or I played it and I just did not like it. You know what? Okay, we earned that 1-star review from you. We'll try to see what we can do to fix the bugs, obviously. And hey, maybe we'll look at rebalancing even. But we've earned that 1-star. That's fine. But if someone goes, I haven't played it yet, or so I'll come back and I'll tell you what I think when I'm done playing it. For the love of God, please don't fucking leave reviews like that, because it legitimately hurts developers and publishers when you do that.
Yep.
If you can't at least give a 4-star, like don't leave a review, unless we've earned that 1-star, obviously. I'm just saying, like, don't,
Just to be an elitist douchebag for a moment. I mean, this is why I don't think you can necessarily trust the user reviews on, like, Metacritic, for example, because often it will be, like, a select group of people who will, like, review bomb a game one way or another. This isn't sort of like a kind of a clear-headed objective assessment. It's an average of all the people who've taken time to kind of vent their feelings, one way or another. Yeah,
they're basically using it as a form of activism.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the thing is there are, we've heard, tales of contracts and stuff that basically it's like, hey, look, if your company, this game does not get this X amount of score on like Metacritic or reviews overall, etc., you guys don't get this bonus, or we're not going to do breach of business with you. And it's like, look, if you have good honest feedback for a developer or a publisher, and you've got an honest score and you can kind of write it just like how I write reviews, fine, leave that feedback. That's important. But if you're just going to be a douche and just 1 star because game not cool, it's like, I'm just going to say
this game is shit. Why is it shit? Okay, you want to be a little bit more elaborative?
Yes, tell me. I want to know. And if it's a bug, oh my god, I really want to know. But like, this game is shit is not. I'm gonna ignore you.
And people do it all the time. It's unfortunate that they have to just unga bunga me hate game. They have this fucking stigmatism that they have to do this. And sometimes they do it just to be a troll. Sometimes they don't even care. It's like, I played it for like 2 seconds, so I'm just gonna be an asshole about it.
Yeah.
Why? Why? What are you contributing? Why are you here?
Another one, there's 2 more that I hate. One is when they kind of make a blanket statement of, oh, I hate all mobile games, therefore I'm going to rate your game bad. And it's like, oh my god, like, take your stance elsewhere, please. Like, I have bills. Like, ads are optional in my game, okay? You don't have to watch a single fucking ad. And then the other one is when you rate it 1 star and say, please add insert language here. Like, I am not liking whatever language that is. If you're gonna rate me 1 star,
I can't play this game in Esperanto. It sucks.
Like, you leave me a suggestion, like in the email or whatever, but don't leave a 1 star requesting a language, because I am far less inclined to add that language when you're penalizing me.
Yep. Because at the end of the day, that tanks your your overall review scores for no reason. And it's like, that problem is that, like you were saying, all these platforms, especially with mobile, I imagine, if you don't have a decent, score, you're going to get, not going to be featured. And honestly, even when you're scrolling through the App Store, then, well, this app or this game has like 2 stars, 3 stars. Most people are probably going to go right past it. It's kind of sad, but it is the truth, especially because there are just so many damn games out there.
So many games.
How do you friggin', pick them? So
right. And that's the funniest part to me, is when they're requesting a language. It's like, okay, well, you've now hurt my chances potentially of making enough money to add a language, because adding a new language is expensive. Oh my god, it's expensive. And especially in languages that don't use, like if you're coding in English or Italian or French, if it uses a completely new alphabet, like, Korean or Japanese or Arabic or Cyrillic, like in a completely new alphabet set, like it's even more expensive. And especially with Arabic, for example, because it goes, instead of left to right, it goes right to left. So now you're looking at a UI redesign. It's like, do you know how much this is going to cost? And we are more likely to be able to afford that if we have at least a 4-star rating. So don't rate us 1 star.
Yeah.
Or just don't leave a rating if you haven't played the game.
That's
this isn't rocket science.
Let's get to the more fundamental stuff here.
It's like, it's like, this is not rocket science. If you haven't played the game, you can't review it. Sorry.
Yes. Because
I tell you, if you've watched the trailer, you can say, this looks shit, this was a shit trailer, but you can't leave a rating on the game because you don't bloody know.
I can't even begin to tell you how many reviews we had that were just, haven't played it yet, I'll let you know. And it's like, could you let me know after you played it? Like, give it some time.
Thanks for the 1-star rating. Now, can you play the game and tell me what you think?
Somebody's like, I watched a Let's Play of it. It looks like shit.
That's not playing the game.
Yes, exactly. It's stupid. It's the same premise.
And that's another thing is with these games is like, at least with our game, is, they'll rate it 1 star. And it's like, didn't meet my expectations. And it's like, I'm sorry, did you want a refund? Here's $0 back. It's a free game. Oh my God. Go play a game you like, please. And it's not just saying like, I hate you. It's more like, because I'm not. It's more as a gamer,
Mhm.
I don't have the time to focus on games I hate. I just fucking don't. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go
You
play
don't
the
like
games I
it,
like.
don't play it.
Yeah,
It's as simple as that. There are a lot of
it's
games that I want to play, but honestly, I got done with them. Like, this just ain't for me. I'm not gonna sit here and shit on it, but it's not for me.
right,
I'm just gonna walk away. It's not hard to
right.
walk away.
It's really not. Just literally uninstall and like leave. Like, and I'm not saying that to be rude. It's more like, don't you have things you want to do? Don't you have games you would rather play? Like,
Mhm.
please, I encourage you to go play the games you like. I know I have fun when I do that. Why don't you want to do that? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
The gamers are turning into more of a cryptid than anything. They're mysterious. You rarely see them, and sometimes you just hear stories about them that sound like absolute bullshit, but they're real.
Sadly.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not just gamers. It's.
I think it's just the zeitgeist.
I
It's
feel
just
like
people.
there have always been very angry people around, but the internet just kind of gives them a place to
Gave them
vent.
the voice.
Everyone, it gives everybody a megaphone.
You know, what's similar to that is like with a lot of like the music that's geared towards like teenage girls, like, you know, Justin Bieber or like K-pop. You know, you'll have a lot of people that were making fun of that, and it's like you realize you're not the target audience. Like, you realize that, you 50-year-old man, like this is not for you. Like, I mean, if you like it, that's fine, but you know who it was for.
So
Like,
I like to think that I like. Okay, this is perhaps maybe it's sort of thought. Maybe it's a hope. I hope that this isn't the zeitgeist, because I think, for example, if you gave 100 people a megaphone and said use this wisely, I like to think 99, 98 of them would only use it if like there was a fire or an
yeah.
emergency or something like that. But it's the one or two are going to be using it all the time to say, you suck!
I don't like broccoli.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just
Yep.
went to the toilet. Let me tell you about it in great detail. You know, and those one or two people are going to skew your view of giving those 100 people a megaphone. You know, and the
Vocal
zeitgeist of
minority.
the day. Exactly, the vocal minority.
You know, and that is fair, because as much as I say that there have been a lot of reviews that were like, you know, I don't like this game, and, you know, there have been plenty. We were really tasked to respond to the people who rated it, you know, low. There were so many 5-star reviews. Like, there were so many that were like, you know, I've followed you since, you know, 2016, and, you know, I'm so excited to play this game. There were more of those, in truth.
Mhm.
But, you know, we have to respond to the negative ones to make sure, like, hey, you know, we're on it, we're fixing bugs, no worries. It's just, as a developer, you have your all, you know. So the vocal minority, I agree, it's a minority, but it's not a tiny.
Not small, not small enough. Okay, well, Heather says make vocal minorities a little bit small.
Make them just a little bit smaller.
Make them a bit more of a minority. Okay.
Play games you like.
Yes, play games you like. Heather 2022. Right, moving on, because it is getting into the final wrap-up stage. It's the final wrap-up stage. We like to call what you've been playing, what you've been doing. And it's become a tradition for me to say it like an Italian American.
Okay.
So yes, starting off, Benny. Now, Benny,
Oh Lord, you're starting
remember,
with
10
me.
minutes or less.
Oh God,
gotta
we didn't even get to the. We didn't even get to the two
try and
big
boil
things.
it down to the one or two things you most want to talk about, and park the
There-
rest.
Okay, here's the list of what I've been doing, and I'll get to the two topics super quick.
Okay.
2.5. I finished the Shantae series, so I have played all the games at this point. Best one, I honestly do feel, is probably Pirate's Curse. Worst one, Half Genie Hero, just because it gets really repetitive if you're going through every single mode. Also, I've played Pocky and Rocky Reshrined. I beat the original one. It's a great, if you love the Pocky and Rocky series, if you're even a Toho fan, this is one of those things maybe you want to take a look at, just because there is some influence in that aspect. Don't have time to get into it, but great game. I actually bought a copy of the Japanese version because it's something I want to check out. Maybe I'll do something about that later. I have had a really rough couple of months, and actually last week I had rewatched the entire Symphogear season 1 of Symphogear. Fantastic show. Go take a look at it. I finished Crimson Blaze's route on Fire Emblem Three Hopes. That was fun. I could mention earlier, I've been playing Shredder's Revenge. That was a lot of fun. I have also played all of the Xbox Live Sonic games for the classics. So that's like Sonic 1, 2, 3, Fighters, etc. in preparation for Sonic Origins. And beat Sonic Origins. Origins is kind of One last happy thing, real fast. So, minor spoilers for anyone who has not played this game, but at the same time, it came out last year, and I adore it, but this came in the mail finally. This is the limited edition for Blaster Master 03, and that box art is exactly kind of what you were fighting for that entire trilogy. And,
where did you order it from?
Limited Run Games last year when they did these, but I opened the box and saw this. I was like, yes, that was what you were fighting that entire trilogy for. And I did a review for that game for the site. Go take a look at it if you want, but it's a fantastic series of games. Go play it. So, all right, the last two things. I'll try to do this super quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Corey, Sister versus Sister, Japanese version. I played the PS5 version. I have the platinum on it. If you are a fan of Mark II and kind of more of the older NEP games where they were more story-based, I think this has a lot of good potential. There's a lot of interesting... Well, I don't understand 100% the story. I know enough Japanese and looked up enough kind of translation-y things with Google Translate, etc. to go, there's a lot of interesting callbacks, and it feels more like the NEP game I've wanted to see since V2, where we were more story. It was more kind of about character growth and development, which makes sense.
No spin-offs, the raw material that we came to the series for in the first place.
Yes, there's only.
I've been wanting this fucking Renaissance for a while now, ever since we went to spin-off hell.
Yeah. Oh no, trust me. I one of my things on my list to do this year was to play through the remaining NET games I haven't. I still haven't started the other ones because the next one on my list is Neptunia RPG. And I just keep going, there's other things I can play. And then at that point, I have Virtual Stars, and I have the Senran spin-off after that. I'm just going, I have other games.
The Senran one was not awful. I reviewed that one. It wasn't the worst one I played. It has some rough parts. It wasn't the worst I played. RPG is... There was so much potential. They tried so goddamn hard, but yeah, there's a few things wrong with that.
Yep. I played I played the previews at AX and E3, and I was not impressed, sadly. But there's only two other things I'll say about that game that are kind of sticking points. One, unfortunately, it continues the stupid tradition of having at least one trophy that is why. In this case, it's kill, I think, 10,000 enemies. I literally had the 12 hours of Bathurst, which is a motorsport race, on, and I spent 8 hours of that race just grinding enemies.
Jesus, why?
Yeah, because I'm an idiot, but at the same time, why are they doing this? So that's them. The other thing, and this is going to sound a little weird, but at the same time, I just want to throw it out there. This game has a massive lack of fan service, which, if that is something that you are, has been bothering you, etc., hey, then this is definitely a kind of more toned down Neptunia in that way. But the other things are, then there's just dumb changes. And again, I'm sorry this sounds weird, but I just want to point this out because I've played the damn game so long. Nepgear's panties are white. That is actually a character inaccuracy. They are supposed to be striped. I have a figure sitting over here where I can legit, but the problem is it's weird because you go, huh, that's strange. And then you realize, wait a second, that is wrong. And then you start to notice other things. Like, for example, in most NEP games, you can kind of put the camera down just a little bit to see, underneath. You can't do that here. When you're going up the ladders, the camera remains locked kind of overhead. And in fact, one of the problems with the camera in that aspect, if you can't go low, there are some times where you're going through the map, and especially this being a little bit more of a blend of action and action RPG to a degree, that it makes it hard to actually navigate around certain areas. because you can't put the camera down below a certain plane. Again, it's one of those that it's going to be based on your taste, but it does kind of just go. It feels like you guys wanted to put the fan service in and got told no at the 11th hour. So either if you're going to design the game with not having it, that's fine. But then do it that way. But I'll say tonal wise, it is a bit strange. But I'm still looking forward to the game. And last thing, I have a Steam Deck. I have been working. On this one in particular, I was able to actually load a bunch of Windows VN 18 plus VNs onto it into the Steam OS through Linux. And let me tell you right now, it is a pain in the ass. That being said, one of the cool things you can do with this, I have an SD card in here, 512, where I can dual boot this thing into Windows. So if I want to basically, there's a VN that I want to play that's not in, the Steam store.
Just put it on the SD.
Put it on the SD, boot into Windows, and you know what? I'm going to play it that way. And all I'm waiting for at this point is the official dock to come out later this year. This thing is going to be basically my VN machine. And I'll either play it on my TV right over here, when I'm in bed, or if I'm just like lazy, I want to curl up and just read a good VN, do it in my bed behind me. But
that's awesome.
Sorry, I know I probably went a little over time there, but
no, that was about 10 minutes, I think. Very good.
Oh.
I think my favorite was that lead up of all those Sonic games just to play Origins and for you to go,
It really kind of was. I think I like it more than most people, but the thing is, at the end of the day, I just kind of go, this does feel a little but that's me.
Well, while Benny gets a placard and writes on it, "Her panties are striped," and goes down to start the protest, we move. Panties are striped. Panties are striped.
You need to keep the whiteboard with you.
No fixed camera.
Just hold it up.
That's a I don't know. Like, it seems like such a small detail, but man, that's like a character-defining trait almost, right? Like,
maybe she bought another pair. She
maybe she doesn't
expect anyone to be looking at them. I don't know.
They're gonna charge it as DLC to have it changed over. Good news. Good job. You just made more content for it.
The only reason I would buy for them being that color is that somehow she's wearing a pair of Unis panties.
Well, I mean, Corey, what's going on there?
Corey, I think you can appreciate that.
What's going on there, eh? Okay.
I have no comment.
Well, that sounds like something you definitely write a fan fiction over. Anyway,
you act like it's not already there somewhere.
Probably it's already there. Damn.
It's not the Yuri-tastic series. I'll say it's not a Yuri-tastic series for no reason. Maybe
it was a subtle little hint. There we go. Okay, well, moving on from lurid topics, Corey, I'm sure you'll give us some more wholesome tales.
Yeah, for the most part. I have admittedly been pretty basic lately because I've had, like John, I've had a hell of a couple months recently. But I did get to pick up Stray so I could go be Cat, and I enjoyed being Cat. It was fun to do cat things. Literally, if you want cyberpunk cat action, there you go. That's all there is to it. You go knock things off of ledges. You can go get bags stuck on your head. And go. I love how in the PS5 version, when I sit there and knead on the carpets, I actually have the adaptive triggers resisting as I fall into it. I'm like, I didn't know I wanted this, and I'm happy that I have it.
There you go.
But yeah, Cat Simulator has been fun. But the big thing that has been consuming my time is we have what is trying to be the first Genshin killer.
Okay.
And that is Tower of Fantasy. And I actually, Francis got me the letter a little late for the beta, but I did get to pop into it for a short period, play the beta a little bit. Then I made my own official character for myself when it made its official debut. I think it was the 10th. It was somewhere around there. But basically, a lot of this formula of the open world Breath of the Wildish anime-esque now gameplay is starting to make its own kind of genre sort of thing, and Tower of Fantasy is taking some riffs from it. But the thing that's killing me is that people keep saying it's a Genshin killer. Well, honestly, it acts more like Honkai Impact 3rd instead of Genshin, and I've got my quips with Tower of Fantasy. I'm not gonna lie, I'm still playing through it. I do enjoy what I'm playing, but it has, how do I describe it? And Betty probably will know exactly what I'm talking about. It has that hint of jank. Like it's trying hard to do to make its gameplay as fluent as possible, but there are just some things like voice lines missing. Sometimes you have some weird animation glitches.
The polish isn't quite there.
Yeah, it's rough around the edges, and that's why I kind of use like the hint of jank. So they made most of the formula all right, but they accidentally put some spices that were a few years out of date in there. It's like, you're getting there, but you missed a couple spot checks here, bud. It's kind of, for me, I like a little bit of jank. It adds some character and a couple of things to laugh at later. Like one part was you can grab onto these little like survey drones. And when I was first doing the beta, I thought it was just a beta thing. When it gets to a certain point where it stops, it sits there and rotates like. You just see the character rapidly twisting back and forth. I'm just sitting there laughing like that's funny as hell. It looks goofy and stupid, and I can tell you right now that's a bug, but at the same time, it's just one of the things where, like I said, just a little hint of jank makes me laugh and add some character for it. But the overall gameplay of it does not feel very Genshin. In fact, I'm having a better time with it playing it as its own game instead of directly trying to compare it to Genshin Impact or Honkai Impact Third. I attribute the UI and stuff like that and some of the mechanics to those games. But like we were saying earlier, tropes are tools. Series are tools. You'll see shit like that all the time, and it's no different for gameplay aspects. You see some similar gameplay stuff. It's like, oh well, this is like this. It's like it is, but you have to remember that Tower of Fantasy here is actually it is trying to do some things that nobody else has done. It's got its own thing going on. So I'm enjoying my time with it. I need to play some more of it before I can really formulate a big overall view of it. But for anybody interested in Tower Fantasy, the best thing you can do, don't play it like a Genshin game. Yes, it is similar to Genshin Impact in a lot of ways, but play it for its own thing. It's rough around the edges, but there is some legitimately good ideas sitting in there, and a lot of ideas that I do like, which is why I'm staying with it. But that's like the most.
Yeah, it sounds like it could develop into something if they can get that, basically kind of round out the, rough spots and polish it up a bit.
It's okay to use a base, use some of these gameplay mechanics as your base. You got your dough there, but they want to make it into its own thing, develop outwards and do stuff that the other people ain't doing. I'm not going to say it's a complete replacement for something else. I'm saying it is building off a good formula to try and do its own thing. So let it grow. These kind of things.
Awesome.
Even when I started with Genshin Impact, it had its bugs and quirks I didn't like about it. That's just the start of some of these larger scale games. You're gonna have that. Okay. So here's hoping that it continues to grow, continues to keep going. I'm still enjoying what I'm doing with it, and I'm gonna keep playing it. Granted, I hope it's not like Genshin where it consumes like 300 hours of my life.
Yeah.
MiHoYo's already threatened me with Zenless Zone Zero and Honkai Star Rail. I don't need help consuming the rest of my life. Speaking of which, soon we're going to be seeing Genshin Impact getting its next content, Sumeru, and that's probably what will be on the next podcast, is me filtering through that, because that's going to be a lot of this. There's a reason these version changes. When they go for a full number, it's a big update. Yep. I'm going to be busy.
It's not 0.1, 0.2, it's a whole number.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And they do this weird thing where they go like 2.6, 2.7, and then they stop at 2.7. They may go to a 2.8, but then they skip to the next number.
It reminds me of that scene in Bad Boys where he just goes, shit just got real. It's a whole number.
No more. No, really.
That's exactly.
I can actually shed light on that. Why they do 2.7, 2.8, and then just go to like 3. Yeah, it has nothing to do with like, okay, it's sequential, like you're supposed to do, 2.9, and now you do 2.10. Because first of all, there's been a lot of confusion. If you do 2.1 versus 2.10, right? It almost ends up being the same. And we've had some trouble with that because we had a 5.1 and then we had a 5.12, and that was really confusing because is it 5.1 or is it 5.12 or is it 5.12, right? And there's a big difference. So, but another thing with that is because those are just bug fixes most of the time, or they're smaller updates. And sometimes
Yeah.
you just get to a point where you do so much that you're like, all right, we're just ready for the next rollout, the next big thing. Like, let's just do 4.0
Okay.
now. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
so it's not, you only do like the point, like if it's a 0.1, it's a generally like it's a sizable update, but like a whole new point is a fucking massive content update, right? And so
It's a refresh,
So
etc.
Genshin's been going. Genshin
Yeah.
kind of we have little events here and there, but no like super bunches of new content. Just kind of a new rollout of little events and little bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah, a new number jump is the sizable update, and that's the stuff that's on the roadmap. You know,
Yep.
the 3.0,
Yeah.
4.0, 5.0, but 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, that's only on the roadmap because we had to fix some shit. And maybe along the way, we found a really cool idea. And so we're going to put that in there. But that wasn't necessarily part of the original plan.
Yeah. And sometimes you might have a feature or something you might have had planned for the next major release where you're like, well, we can get that done now and kind of roll that out maybe a little bit early and it'll fit in with this, so it's kind of fluid. Like you see that all the time. Best example, Mac OS. Every single year you have the major release, which will increment the number. Like we're going to Ventura, I think is 12 or 13. That's 13. Yeah, because it's right around 12 right now. But then during the year, you'll see 12.1, 12.2. We're at 12.5, I think, right now. It's that same sort of idea. It's like sometimes you'll have a feature, either you bug fixes or there's a feature you thought up you can throw in there, or you're pulling a feature from later in the roadmap down now because you have the time to work on it and it'll fit in.
Right.
So it development's a very fluid thing, it very much is.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm glad I can lead into that topic.
Speaking of massive updates, Heather, give us a massive update on what you've been playing and what you've been doing.
So I've mostly been playing my game, Landfall, because every playtesting meeting I gotta, show all the bugs that I found and all the updates that I would like to be put in there. And so I haven't had a whole lot of time for games. That actually I kind of got in a little bit of trouble with that because I was requesting so many games and then not playing them in a timely manner. And
Hey Heather, you ever finish that other part of my article that we were working on?
I know. I've got it saved in a draft. I'm just waiting on one more section. I look at it.
I know. I'm just
time.
giving you shit about it.
I feel so
good.
bad, but I'm almost done.
You'll get there.
So I've been mostly on my eBay bullshit. Like I find okay, I don't have time for games, but I'm just gonna buy some fun Final Fantasy X stuff because that's my favorite game of all time. So I was gonna show you guys. I have some tarot cards I got from Amano, who whole deck. Yeah, very pretty.
Is that the minor arcana and the major arcana?
I don't know anything about tarot cards, so whatever you
just have like the Joker, the Hierophant, and all those, and not like.
I see the High Priestess, I see Temperance, I see the Star, I see the Sun.
Okay, you got major arcana.
Page of Swords. Yeah, Knight of Pentacles. I don't know.
Oh no, you do have the minor arcana too. Neat.
Okay, yeah.
You got both arcanas.
I got 2 decks. Yeah.
Yep, that's major and minor.
Cool. Yeah. See, I have no idea.
Don't ask why I know that. I don't even remember where I learned that information.
When I was a kid, Card Captor Sakura was a big thing, and so cool! It's baby's first
that brings
tarot
back
deck,
memories.
right?
That made some good shit back in the day.
Yeah. So I recently, I bought my Card Captor Sakura Cloud Cards collection book because I had it as a kid, but I lost a lot of my possessions when I was little to a house flood. So I was just kind of rebuying things that I remembered, and that was one of them.
Okay.
And then, just kind of in whatever little free time I have been trying to get some reviews out the door. I did South of the Circle, really cool game. More of a movie though. So if you're not big on narratives where choices pretend to matter but they really don't, don't get it. But it's about a disaster mission in Antarctica during the Cold War.
Okay.
And then there's Noel and the Mortal Fate, which I bet you guys know, Corey and Benny. Noel and the Mortal Fate is like a RPG maker / anime game. It's like a 7-part series that was starting to release in 2016. and
What's that for?
it's Japanese, but they did a whole new retranslation, and it just released for re-released, I should say, for Steam and Xbox. It was on Switch earlier this year, and it's about a girl who wants to be like, she wants to win this piano competition. It's apparently like a super big deal in her culture, and she loses. She's second place, and she's so pissed off about it that she gets tricked into doing a deal with the devil to win the piano competition. But she was lied to, and she was told, like, if you kill the CEO of like this company, you'll become the winner. And so the devil kills the CEO, but in return, he takes his price, which is all of her limbs.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yeah,
Oh.
I didn't know. I was like, oh shit, that's my one trigger.
Dismemberment.
Yeah.
Oh, I've not heard about this yet.
Yeah, I was like, dear God, that's like the one trigger I got is dismemberment. And I've said this before in other podcasts, but just to reiterate real quick, it's because I had an arm accident where my arm was cut off, but they did reattach it. So it's not like just some random trigger, like it's a trauma. But they do okay. Like, it's not graphic, so I was able to be like, okay, whatever, that's fine. But yeah, so then she has to basically, her second deal with the devil was unintentional. She now has to go through and get revenge, basically. So it's a tale of revenge. It's a tale of revenge, basically. And yeah, so it was really interesting. And then the next one I'm playing, I'm sorry, I'll just hurry and finish. I've got two that I just kind of play in my spare time. One is Battle Cats. I'm playing that again.
Aww.
I love Battle
That
Cats.
looks cute.
Any cat game. I'm waiting for my physical copy of Stray. And then the other one is the Shin-chan game that just came out for Switch. I'm reviewing it for the site.
John.
Yeah.
Man, I remember I used to watch that on Adult Swim.
Yes, the Laura Bailey Funimation dubs. Well, this is kind of based off the Japanese original, so he's irreverent, but not as like, action bastard, like not like that. It's called Me and the right. Me and the Professor on Summer Vacation: The Endless 7-Day Journey. It is fucking adorable. It's like a very easy Animal Crossing. You catch bugs, you catch fish. You sell stuff. It's so fucking cute. Highly recommend.
Okay.
Love it. So yeah, and then I've got the new Saints Row, but I haven't touched it yet. I'm gonna start playing it today, tomorrow. Yeah, so excited.
Right. Is it out of the cellophane yet?
Well, I haven't. I got the review code for HeyPoorPlayer.
Oh, okay.
So,
Digital, right.
But
Okay.
I am getting the collector's edition. So I don't have to open it because I got the review code.
There you go.
There you go.
Keep her mint. You can sell it for a pretty penny down the road.
There
I mean,
you go.
if I saw it, I don't think I'm ever going to. I love Saints Row too much. We played that music at our wedding.
Well, speaking of review codes received from HeyPoorPlayer, I got Postal Brain Damaged.
I read that review. And I was curious if it was going to leave you with more regrets.
I thought I was going to have some regrets. I thought I was going to be brain damaged, but it was actually okay.
Oh.
It's like kind of a bit like Doom Eternal. Not quite as good, but it's all right, And I'm like, holy crap. It's just like, I thought, like, Postal 3 and Postal 4, it's like a guy attaches an anvil around one ankle and a cannonball around the other, and then jumps in a lake. And then somehow he swims to the surface and makes a good game. I mean, it's unbelievable.
You see his head pop, I was like, holy shit, he did it.
Yeah, I know.
He did it.
How? you had a good
I
game
saw your
inside
review
you.
of it. I was really actually anticipating the same kind of review for No Regrets, but I was glad to see that. I've been tempted to pick it up myself. I think I added it to my wish list because
that's the thing.
It looks good.
That's the thing. It's like so Postal 3 and Postal 4, they try and do loads of different things, try and make it an open world game, but they do everything terribly. And with Postal Brain Damaged, they try and do one thing, just be a fun kind of boomer shooter. they do it well. There you go.
Yeah, it's funny. It's almost like if you don't complicate your formula, it sometimes turns out just fine.
It was kind of like playing Postal 1, which was the last Postal game I really enjoyed. Yeah, you run around and you shoot a bunch of things. And, there is a little bit of zany humor and a bit of zany comedy. But it's not
that's kind of what defined it back then.
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of defined it.
It's a bit edgy, but it's like, you see, in Postal 4 and Postal 3, they'd have, like, these edgy jokes, but then you'd hear them, like, 10 times in 10 minutes, and you just, oh, this isn't funny anymore. But it's like, in Postal Brain Damaged, it's like, there'll be jokes, but then they won't repeat them. It's funny, and you just move on. Yeah, you move on to the next joke.
Yeah,
and that's
just good.
There you go. It's like when I was kind of floating in space, to move faster, you can fart. The fart will propel you. That's the kind of thing that would have got really irritating if they'd done it through the whole game. But they only did it in that one section. It made me laugh. It made me giggle in a kind of immature Beavis and Butthead way, and then I moved on. It's not that hard, really.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, Jonathan 2022 making a good game. It's not that hard. Don't quote me out of context. Okay, so another thing I've done, talking of 90s movies, I watched Double Dragon, the movie.
Okay.
Starring a young Alyssa. Now, Alyssa Milano runs. So it's a kind of a LA 2007. An earthquake has destroyed the city, and it now is in a sort of dystopian totalitarian hellhole where you can't go out after like 7 o'clock because the gangs take over. You remember what LA was like in 2007, Heather?
Oh my god,
that's what it was like. That's exactly
how
what
did
it
we
was like.
survive?
I was lucky that I was in Palmdale at that point, so I was nowhere near it.
And Alyssa Milano runs this kind of underground counterinsurgency against all the gangs, and they've got this kind of pastel-coloured basement hangout where there's kind of artisanal graffiti on the walls. They've got arcade machines. They do skateboarding. It looks awesome. It looks like being a counterinsurgent in the 90s was lots of fun. That's what you get from this movie.
Welcome to Zion.
Yeah, there's the bar over there. There's the arcade machine. There's the pool table. Have fun. Have fun, guys.
Trinity's over there skateboarding.
But yeah, it was funny because so there's the guy playing a Bobo who's kind of like, one of the bosses in Double Dragon. And so first he kind of chases them down with this sort of wireframed early 90s kind of graphical interface thing. And then he gets evolved into like a super form where he's wearing this gigantic rubber suit. So when he's fighting with the guys, he can only kind of go like this. So, like, when he's supposed to be in his final form, he's actually worse at fighting than he would be before. And, the whole thing, it's just done with practical effects or pictures of the real LA with these sort of paintings behind it of this post-apocalyptic scenery. And although it was so much kind of low-key, I liked it more than most Marvel movies these days, because it has kind of a quaint practical effects charm to it, and it's kind of goofy and it's kind of fun, and I liked it. And one final thing, Heather, I played Hoonipop.
I saw it. You were like on my Switch or on my Steam thing.
Yeah.
I was like, yay! Someone else is playing.
Someone else is playing, and it was like, and I just got it up. Who's your favorite girl in Hoonipop?
Oh my god! In the first one, it's been so long for the first one that I would have to look at the list again.
You don't have to say the name, just the archetype.
I liked the teacher, the Japanese teacher.
Yeah,
because she was just kind of like real.
Yeah, she's
like,
just real with you. Just
yeah.
How many sexual partners you've had? You don't have to hide it from me.
Right, like she was just kind of like,
I like sex. Yeah.
Yeah, but like she just like if she was like frustrated with something, she'd just be like, "Oh my god," like I'm just so annoyed today. But she wasn't a bitch like Audrey.
Yeah, that oh my goodness, they really went overboard.
Oh, they made her a bitch.
They made her really horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, geez. And
Go back and replay that at some point.
Yeah, I played it a long time ago, and I do not remember a lot from it. All I remember is the puzzle mechanic, and I'm like, I do not think fast enough for this shit.
I think he was just saying this because for the site I've written every honeypot to, or honeypot, how do you say it? Written every single fucking guide there could be.
Yes. Heather is the expert. But yeah, I mean that was lots of fun.
They're good games. Like that's what people dismiss them. They're good games.
It's a good kind of puzzle game, and I kind of feel like I also like the Japanese teacher a lot, but I think it's kind of tied with the cat girl as well.
Oh, she's fun.
Asked you lots of cat questions. Oh, and I did like how the alien girl asks you loads of astrophysics questions. It's like,
that's true. She is fun.
Astronomy.
Celeste.
This is my jam. I know the smallest planet in the solar system. This is why I learned this stuff, so I could sleep with an alien girl. Obviously, I learned it for something. Finally, it comes in handy. Go on.
No, I was gonna say Q. I do actually like Q. Like everyone kind of forgets her, but she's fun too. Like she's just kind of always there, just chilling.
Yeah, just chilling in the back. Oh, and the other sort of vaguely disturbing thing was when I was kind of talking to, so I was talking to the blonde porn star lady, and she's talking about like she occasionally used to say like, oh, I've got a daughter by the way, and just say, oh, my last name's Mai, and then I'll talk to the young blonde girl who's saying, oh wait, yeah, my last name. Oh, I'm dating a mum and a daughter. Shit. It's just you kind of find that out sort of halfway through, and it's like, oh, whoa. Okay.
And if you play the second one, which I encourage you to do, they kind of touch on that a little bit.
Ah, good, because that kind of felt like a bit of a loose end there.
Yeah, they touch on it slightly.
Yeah, there would kind of be. I kind of feel like there should have been a massive dramatic scene where they're like, "You're sleeping with my mom," and then somehow you've got a match free to get out and make her forgive you.
Sounds about as awkward as dating at a family reunion.
I guess you would find out, like, if you went to one.
While we speculate on what Corey's family reunions are like.
But I'm from Illinois, this kind of thing.
You're from Chicago. It's like St. Valentine's Day Massacre over there. Jeez.
Oh, God.
Okay. Well, anyway, yes, it has been wonderful talking to you all. It's been a very fun podcast. Heather, congratulations again.
Thank you.
Everyone go play Terra Genesis. And is there anything else anyone wanted to say before we call time?
No, I'm just going to hold the box.
Hold the box.
I'm just going to hold up the wholesome box.
Hold the wholesome box. And I can see my reflection in the wholesome box saying, play this game. You can see the thumbs up.
This is what we're fighting for.
This is what we're fighting for. Okay, well, I guess there's nothing left to say, but see you later, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Wait, before you go, be sure to check out HeyPoorPlayer.com for more HeyPoor content, and check out all our social media. And don't forget to check out my Twitter as well. That's me, Jonathan Trussler. Well, it's really the final goodbye now. Bye!